Hello, my name is Olurotimi Osha. Today is June the 20th, 2026. We are in Men's Mental Health uh, Month, and you know, I, I had to sit down and think about, not just the symptoms of demonstrated mental illness um, that's become sort of pervasive in America. Of course, with the when I say symptom, with the mass violence, the spate of murder suicides that we see in the news. Of course, what's spurred me to have this discussion is because I was thinking. So I do a lot of reflection. I do a lot of thinking, and that's what I'm trained to do. Not just because I went to law school, and in law school, we're trained to have a discussion, an analytical discussion, and then analyze what's going on in society in the past, analyze precedents, previous cases, and everybody has to do it. It's called the Socratic method, and we're used to having these discussions. So a professor picks on one person, right? Random, that he doesn't tell you when it's going to be your turn. So it's sort of encourages every student to prepare for every class, every case, right? So the professor doesn't tell you ahead of time. By the way, it's been many years since I graduated from law school, about 7 years now. Um, so the professor doesn't tell you ahead of time that you're the one that's going to analyze this case. And the way you analyze is he's having a discussion with you throughout the day over this about this case, the ins and outs, everything, and so that's called the Socratic method, right? So everybody's used to this, and it demonstrates critical thinking. It requires critical thinking. And that's something that I've come to realize with all the violence, the spate of violence, even social media, and even into interactions. We can be selective of people we interact with. I've talked about my experience, how I was swatted in Montgomery County, Maryland, and they scripted this whole fabrication of what happened, like an alternate universe. What did not happen? I was in my home preparing for one thing, I was supposed to be preparing for some kind of military intelligence appointment, right, to join military intelligence. But it turns out something else was going on, right? They had staged a, they had actually really staged uh, an emergency crisis that hadn't happened. I was supposed to be going through this emergency crisis, and that was dangerous. And 40 cops, I was raided. You should have seen the way they came with an armed force. And initially, I'm going on with the script because they'd locked me in. Because actually, this is what I've done a lot of training on this, right? At my job, they train you on counterintelligence. It's bizarre, even though I'm not in intelligence. I wasn't in intelligence, but I suppose they expose everybody. Once you have a top secret and you work in certain places, like I was working at the Pentagon for the Navy, so and especially I was supporting, um, a certain group of people, right? So they give you that kind of training just to be aware. That's and especially since I was ostensibly there was probably a reason why they were doing the make believe thing that they're trying to hire me in this capacity in military intelligence. And so the way it was, there was no reason, there was no rationale for me to be raided, locked up in my home. it was until they drew blood. So I thought, okay, this is being staged, it's play acting, and I'm supposed to play along. So I'm playing along. It was until I was tasing and blood started coming out that I realized, okay, uh, this thing that is clearly staged um, is a setup, and these guys are going to kill me. And but you can see the formula. This whole stuff. When I was telling my friends were they're like wrapped. It's like it's like a movie. It sounded like a movie, and that's the funny thing. America has this scripted society now. It's like everything is by formula. So Americans don't think critically, right? You see American life reflects Hollywood. Hollywood reflects American life. It's just a formula, very formulaic. But the bad thing is, if you're doing actors when they do a movie and you're watching a movie and the actors are following a plot, right? And they're shooting a gun at someone and the tomato sauce spills out. At the end of the day, they're going to wrap up the script and everything is going to go back to normal, right? The guy who's fading being dead gets up and they walk away. He's not hurt. Remember the Alec Baldwin thing when somebody puts real bullets, and Alec Baldwin thought, it was normal. This is supposed to be staged. They're blank bullets. Instead, he fires real bullets on, unwittingly, not knowing, at one of the cast or whatever, the crew, and of course she was killed. Americans live by a script, and from the news, I mean, what prompted me to have this discussion was just how prone to violence and inured by the violence. Americans have become inured to their very own violence. It's a very violent society, and everybody, you can't isolate or predict American violence anymore. It's just become irrational. Today I saw another murder suicide, and it seemed like a movie, right? I don't know if it was a spouse, but domestic violence, and this guy in a car chase, right, went on a car chase chasing a woman who had 2 kids in the car. She's running away. She's driving, running away. It's a car chase. And the guy eventually corrals her, barricades, runs her off the road, gets out, and pumps bullets, kills her, and then takes his own life. And their kids, his kids are in the car with her. Domestic violence, another murder-suicide. Just this June. We've had this spate of, and it's so surreal. Americans are a nerd. I check the news. Okay, I don't really watch TV like that, the news, but like people aren't shocked anymore. It's just become normal. Americans have just become accustomed to this violence. It's part of American society. I saw, in the same news, news stream, the feed that I was saying, is an army sergeant or whatever, a military man, opened fire on the base. It was lucky they didn't kill him because it was a black guy, and he shot like 5 people. And the argument, or his lawyers were saying he was really suicidal, so he didn't kill anybody or something. He shot at them, and the other side is arguing that, well, military people are trained that when they open fire, they should shoot to kill, just to kill. So, and now I guess I'm understanding why cops don't try and shoot to disarm. They just shoot to kill, right, in America. Because I guess many of them are ex-military, or maybe the police academy also trains them the same way, that when they open fire, they should aim to kill. I don't know. But this was what the lawyers for the defendant, right, was saying that, well, that the guy was really suicidal, that he opened fire with the objective that they would kill him. Right? This is somebody who was wearing a uniform. He hadn't been discharged. He was actually still living on army base, and they couldn't flag him that this guy is nuts. Right? That he's homicidal or he's suicidal. And the spate of violence just keeps going on. The number of murder suicides, it happens every week now in America, virtually. And I've been thinking something else, the combination of why I'm doing this, because one, the killings are senseless, right? Violence, just easily resorting to violence. Of course, it's a combination of having guns easily available, right? Because of the so-called Second Amendment. Guns are easily available in America. But the other thing is, there's growing illiteracy in America, right? You can see, a poster child of that are law enforcement. There was a charge statement that was written against me, right, by Montgomery County Police. And this police officer, who was affiliated to the Marines, by the way, and Navy and Marines, because investigations were done. The person epitomized the illiteracy, the concerning illiteracy of, that permeates America's law enforcement. That aside, the lies as well, right? Everything, this guy just wrote a fabricated script of events that didn't happen, even though the evidence is there, right? The body cam is there. He knew there's a body cam that was going to contradict what he wrote. The American public is constantly calling out President Trump as a liar, that he lies. But I'm like thinking, it's not like Americans are truth tellers, the American public. The police are liars. They fabricated a script. A Howard University professor, Jide Wariri, right, who's supposed to be like a pastor, an elder in a church, and a professor, right? He's a liar. He's a liar. He fabricated an emergency petition. Everything he wrote was a fabrication. After that, he lied to my parents, lied to my mother. My father's late. Lied to my family right back home in Nigeria of what happened. Everything he said was a lie. Like, lying has just become part of a tapestry of America. And they don't know it. In fact, when you read the reporting in the news, I give a specific example, not to generalize. The fraudster, the con artist, CIA senior executive service, David J. Rush, who was found with gold bullion worth over $40 million in his house, Rolexes, $2 million in cash. When you see the reporting of mainstream media, you see them soft peddling. You don't see them calling him what he is, a fraudster, a con artist. They don't, and these are journalists, they're trained in this. They're highly educated. They're supposed to be critical thinkers, but they're not demonstrating it. They can't focus on the critical issues. Right? You see them soft peddling. They don't come out and say, oh, he's a con artist, he's a fraudster. Because importantly, it's not that he had the big thing, because it's the CIA, and he's a senior executive in the CIA who can run a SAP, special access programs. Look, when I was in law school, there were several professors who had, contacts in national security. And there are things that they would say. They tell you that, they walked into maybe like a safe house somewhere that belonged to the government, and they found millions of dollars. It was just lying down there. So these are part of the covert operations that they run. It's the MO of the CIA. Obviously, people have heard of what the CIA does, right? The CIA, they go out. They're not supposed to operate in America. They go out and topple governments or plan all sorts of stuff, all sorts of false flag operations. They have foreign assets. Obviously, they buy foreign assets. They use money for it, and money has to be, they've got to have a way to transfer the money. They can't easily transfer the money through our regular financial systems because of anti-money laundering rules, right? So there are ways. So, hey, I'm not those things. That's not the issue that a CIA officer, a top CIA official who runs special access programs, who has the authority to do that, something ultra secret, right, has millions from the CIA. That's not the issue, right? In fact, you notice he's not been charged with that. The charging is that the other fraud he did, that he had left the military, but he was still collecting military leave, $77,000 in military leave. That's what he was charged with, falsification of records. His identity, he shouldn't have gotten into the government. He falsified his credentials to get into the CIA. That wasn't caught. He's a con artist, right? So the journalists can't even spot the issues. They're just talking about what's not the issue there. Oh, well, he's got millions in his house. As a CIA senior executive, there's a bunch of them that have that. He was supposed to be in the process of executing an operation, right? That's customary. But the thing is, somebody who wasn't supposed to have it got it. He's a fraudster that sipped in. He evaded the system. He's a fraudster, a con artist that got into the CIA. Was there for 17 years. His entire yes, the CIA has many false identities, but now they're like, hey, this guy is not who he says he is. He came in with a false identity. The CIA has many aliases. Their operatives, their case officers have many aliases, right? That's part of their MO. So you see the journalists sugarcoating, soft peddling. They can't say certain things. Maybe they're trying to avoid being sued, So somebody taught them a formula, but so they don't even know when to think critically. They're just following a formula. That, okay, hey, let's be careful. If we say this, they might sue us for defamation. No, that's not the case. You need to be able to customize, apply knowledge on a case-by-case basis, and just don't use a formula. And you see, that's where America is right now. They've been scripting events, and you don't know when they're acting anymore. But back to the lying, right? Lying. Americans have become pathological liars. Of course, there's still people who are honest, who are genuine, but it's concerning when you see a lot of people. Maybe on TV or in the social media or in society, who've just become inert to lying, And there's this predatory mindset. I think that's where I was getting. Americans have this notion, this standard notion now, to resist, to eliminate anyone that resists them. Not enter a debate, not try to think critically. They're not thinking critically anymore. Something else that spurred this is I posted something on my social media. Of course, I've been doing videos like this, and I had a caption: ex post facto denaturalization is unconstitutional. And then I just had these people just bombard my Facebook. So I have to say, oh, it's not, or if they gain it by fraud, then it's not. If you obtain citizenship by fraud, then you can be revoked. That's not what I said. In fact, in the video I mentioned it. Citizenship by fraud is illegal. You'll be denaturalized. Right? The burden of proof is on the government, but if you obtain a citizenship by fraud, the government proves it, that person will be denaturalized. And I saw all these people, funny enough, they were from Florida, they were white people, middle-aged white people. And I'm like, how does this Facebook algorithm work? How have all these people I don't know, how have they bombarded my Facebook? And they're saying what it is that did they listen to my discussion? Because I know some of these videos I do are long. This is 20 minutes already. Or they were just addressing the title. But even that title is not wrong. I said ex post facto denaturalization is illegal. And they're like, oh, no, it's not. Oh, blah, blah, blah. They're just saying stuff that was BS. If you go into AI, ChatGPT, and write ex post facto denaturalization is illegal, ChatGPT will respond and say yes, it is. It's unconstitutional. That was what I wrote. Ex post facto denaturalization is unconstitutional. I decided to just post it. It's not controversial. It's actually in our constitution and it's unconstitutional. But these people come and start debating irrationally. And they were white, middle-aged people. And they just started emoting, saying things that were irrational. Things I didn't say. And I was like, these people are crazy. What's up? I don't know them. People in Florida, I'm like, how did people in Florida get to... I'm not connected to them on Facebook. How does this algorithm work? And that's a society America has today. Americans are impervious to reason. And as I was reading the news today about this person that went on, a car chase, killed his baby mama, then took his life. And all these people, all these killings that have occurred again this week. I recalled a National Geographic thing I once saw of a lion, right? And that was what I was just thinking. I was just likening the American mindset to being predators. It's like that's what Americans have become, predators. They're just predators and they use deception. Their goal is just to destroy, annihilate resistance. I once saw this clip in National Geographic, on TV anyway, all these animal documentaries. And it was of a lion. A lion was trying to hunt its prey. And it was coming out of a thicket, right? And it saw its prey. But it was walking stealthily. I guess because lions are lazy or something, they're not fast, so they just don't run and start chasing. But it was moving stealthily, with stealth. And the prey heard something. And then the lion just froze, like a mannequin, no movement. I was stuck, like it was acting, like an actor. It just froze. So like it was moving, it just froze, and then the prey looked up, nothing. And then it did again, and the prey went about its thing. And so both of them were acting. Because the prey saw the lion. The prey knew that's a lion. The lion's going to kill it, right? The lion is not supposed to be there. The prey knew that. The lion wasn't there. It's not supposed to be there. The lion is not a stuffed animal. It's just acting. But they now both engage in this script, this self-delusion. The prey now, when the lion just froze and didn't move, like it was a mannequin, like it was a statue. The lion actually did that. And the prey looked, and then it pretended that, okay, well, the lion doesn't move, and went about doing its thing, even though it was terrified. And then the lion moved a little bit, and then the prey, was alert again, and then he looked, and then the lion froze again, pretended like it was a stuffed animal. And this really happened. Instead of the prey to have tried to, it was terrified, I don't know, maybe that it was its own flight or freeze, and but it wasn't frozen, because it would look, once the lion didn't move, it carried on as if, hey, the lion is a stuffed animal, right? It's a statue, it's not moving. Instead of getting the heck out of there or being frightened, hey, okay, this lion is going to pursue it, but it's going to run for its life. It didn't do that. until the lion eventually pounced on it. It's like that's where America is. You know, it's because of this. We have the strongest military in the world. Strongest military in the world. The notion was we had the strongest military in the world as a deterrent that we won't use it. No, and America is just violent, a very violent environment now, and it's irrational. Americans are not thinking; they can't use critical thinking. The only place that probably, that's supposed to encourage critical thinking are our universities, our campuses, and you're seeing this anti-intellectualism going on in America now. And it's unfortunate. See the young man that should have set an example. He was supposed to be a Christian. That's Cole Thomas Allen, the latest attempted, would-be presidential assassin, right? Who attempted to kill President Trump in April 2026. He was a graduate of one of our most prestigious universities of the world, Caltech. He was a mechanical engineer. He was a computer scientist, had a master's. He was a teacher. He was a Christian. He was supposed to be a devout Christian, as he used to. And he's writing, and you read his manifesto, it was just irrational. His action was irrational, it was suicidal, right? You don't like the president, he'll be out he has a term limit, he's not a dictator, right? Maybe 3 years, 2 years, 3 years, violence, we have this notion of finality now. If somebody, a graduate of one of our most prestigious universities are supposed to, they engender critical thinking, debates. That's what goes on in universities. It shows our universities are failing. Our professors are not teaching debates. The curriculum is no longer teaching debates. Get used to debates, right? Debating. It's not a fight. When you're debating someone, it's not a do or die thing. And Americans have become inured. They become, they're now averse to resistance. So that's why they can't have debate. So they're programmed the script is to annihilate any form of resistance. A predator mindset. It's constantly on now. It's a predator. And unfortunately, the world might start to view America as like an existential threat to the safety of humanity at some point, if Americans don't change from within. My name is Olurotimi Osha. These are encouraging times. I'll keep you posted. Thank you.